Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to grecochess, the YouTube channel of chess. I'm your host. My name is Harry Lassani Series. If you've seen the previous video, we defeated Wally, the chess.com bot, rated 1800. We defeated this bot twice, both with white and with black pieces, although with black, it took us a second attempt. But between bots, we have the puzzle rush. And let's share the screen. Here is the bots. We completed Wally 1800, and the next one is going to be Julia from the Netherlands, also rated 1800, but in the meantime, Puzzle Rush. The rules of the game once again is that chess.com is going to provide one puzzle after another until we have three of them wrong. We're supposed to find the winning moves either for white or for black. And they start from the easiest. The first few ones usually are very easy, and they become more and more complicated, more and more difficult. Eventually, we're going to have three of them wrong. My personal record is 50 correct. We did it during part of this series. Let's see if we can break it. Or at least if we don't break it, how well can we do? What can we learn? And I'd like to ask you in the comments, you may want to write, how have you done in the puzzle rush? How many puzzles have you been able to get correct before you got the three of them wrong? But we are starting. I hit the play button and off we go. Survival mode means that there is no time limit, so I have enough time to discuss with you my thought process, and you may want to pause after every video once it's presented. In fact, the moment that we get one correct or wrong, the next one will present. You may want to pause the video and try by yourself to see if you can do it. That is really going to help you improve upon your chess skills. And here we are, play. And the first one. That is an easy one. Background story. The black king is covered by its 2 pawns in front of it, cannot escape. So here we are. Okay, black can postpone by placing the knight on f8, but rook will take it. And we start, and we got the first one correct. Second one. Another background story. This time black cannot even postpone it, if I'm correct. Queen goes to e8, and it should be mate. Let's see. Next one. Another background story. Black might postpone for 2 moves, but once again, if rook goes to c1, it is background mate. Yes. Next one. Background story again. Rook goes to d1, or white may postpone by rook to e1, but rook will take rook and it's mate. Next one. This is what is called the kiss of death, meaning the queen goes near the king and is protected by another piece. The other piece is the bishop here. It's going to protect the queen that is going to make it to g2. Let's continue. Another kiss of death. You see the diagonal bishop g2, queen d, bishop b2, queen d4, diagonal. They will end up mating at g7. Another one, queen. You have the bishop on f3, and collaborating with the queen on d8. Queen will go to d1, and it's mate. Let's see here what is happening here. There is no backrank, no kiss of death, but something quite simple. Queen goes to h4 check. King has only one square, g1, and queen will go to h1 mate. Let's see what's going to happen here. Does black have any checks? Black can easily take the bishop on c7, but then rook goes to c1, and due to the pin, the queen is lost. Of course, for a rook plus a bishop, but that's not what we want. Let's see, is there any check we can make? Yes, there is. A kiss of death again. I should have seen it earlier. The square g2, bishop f1 will collaborate with the queen from bishop on f1 will collaborate with the queen on c2 and kiss of death on g2. Let's see what's happening here. This is not kiss of death, but mate in one again. Look at the rook on f1, unprotected. Queen will grab it and it's mate. Here, back rank, but we need the queen sacrifice first, because first queen goes to f2 check, king to h1, queen to f1 check, queen takes queen, and rook goes to f1 mate. Keep in mind, if it was not for the g2 and h2 squares, this would not have worked, and if anything, black would have lost a queen for a rook. Let's see what's happening here. If only the rook on a1 here did not exist, queen would have gone to d1 mate, but the rook will grab the queen. What do we do instead? Let's see. If rook goes to e2, the other check, where can the king go? c1, and queen goes to c2, it's a mate. I don't think any other option for white. Look, I may make mistakes. I'm not claiming that what I say is by definition correct. So I might be wrong sometimes, then I'll be. But I think this time I'm right. Let's see. Yes. Let's see what's happening here. White has a wonderful discover check, with the queen not under attack. So anywhere the knight goes, it's a check. But where can the knight go? You don't want it to go somewhere that can be captured. So it seems the most promising square is d3. If it was not a check, white has at least two ways to capture the knight. But now white needs to do something. And what can the something do? If they place the knight on b5, this just postpones the inevitable, because then queen will take. The other option is for king to go to either a2, queen will go here, or a3. Let's see what's happening in a3, because the mate is not so immediate. Queen goes to b4. Let's see once again. King goes to a2 and queen goes to b2 mate. Yes. Here, mate in one move again, kiss of death. Queen goes to f7, protected by the bishop on h5. Here, mate in one move. Unfortunately for black, the rook on g8 is blocking the king. Yes, attacking the queen for one moment, but once the queen goes to h6, it is mate. Let's see what's happening here. Bishop can check the king two ways, but if it goes to g5, there is so what? King has two squares to escape, no follow-up. But if bishop goes to a3 check, king can only go to b1, and then rook goes to d1, and it's mate. And let's continue. Here, I don't think we are mating, but will win material. Look, if knight goes to, once again, of course, I had asked you if you want to pause your videos once we see the video before I start speaking to see the solution by yourself. But here, knight goes to d3 check. What can black do? If they take with a rook, clearly rook goes here. And we want a rook. What if the pawn takes? Let's see this one. Rook goes to e1, rook takes rook, and then queen takes rook. And of course, they must take the knight, otherwise the knight wins the rook. Here, yes, the queen is attacked and cannot, but if rook takes rook, it's a check. So that doesn't help really white. Yes, so we got this correct. Let's see what's happening here. This is a tricky one. Hmm. Once again, we win a rook. It's not a mate. Queen checks from d3. And no matter what white does, queen goes to f5, wins the rook, and if white at most can exchange the queens. See if this is the answer. What? Yes, they can take the c3 pawn, but there is nothing there. It's not a check. This is a check. And yes, and we won a rook. Here, it is a case of an ending. And what if the rooks are exchanged? That is a question you have to ask in the endings. What if the pieces are exchanged? If these rooks would disappear, then how can they disappear? There is an easy way. Usually they disappear when there is a particular kind of check. If rook checks from g4, white must take it. Otherwise they lose the rook. Pawn takes, king takes. And then, and this pawn is in the square. I'm going to draw the square for you. Let's do once again. Let's skip. No, let's without, ideally it's without the squares. The square is the following. So the pawn is in the square, so the king cannot stop it. Look at that. Rook, rook, pawn takes rook, king takes pawn. And the pawn is in the square, will advance and the square will become even smaller. What if the king does not take the pawn? Well, then if you try to win this, oh, the black king will win this pawn and the other pawn will promote. You see the pawn being pushed and it's on time to promote. Do we have mate here? I think we are going to win at least a rook. And we are down by, no, we are already up an exchange. So if rook takes here, king goes here. Rook takes here, king goes here. Yes, it's a mate this time. And rook goes here, it's mate. It's mate because you have king collaborating the rook, 2 squares apart. Great. Here, it's a tricky one. You need to know the pattern. The 2 squares, king from king. White needs to sacrifice a rook. Not an easy move to see. White is already down by a knight, minus a pawn, if I count correctly. So you definitely don't want to sacrifice more material unless you have to. But if you don't sacrifice material and the game continues quote unquote normally, you lost. Queen is attacked. Black will have one more move, and let's see. So, but here the rook takes the pawn on h7, excuse me. King has to take another move, and queen goes to h5, and is a mate. Let's see what's happening here. Under regular conditions, meaning if black immediately decides to take the, black is material. Black is down by a knight minus a pawn, like the previous part. In fact, the knight for 2 pawns. Okay, not like the previous, but still, you are down. And under regular conditions, white has a knight, black has these 2 passed pawns, a7, c7, still at the beginning may or may not be able to win. But if rook takes rook, we have a change and nothing comes out. Yes, you pin the knight and so what? But what if the queen checks here? No matter what white does, they lost the rook. If they place the rook, the queen here, to temporarily avoid it, then we change queens, and the rook is lost. The white rook is lost. So we win the rook, and we are ahead by an exchange plus 2 pawns. You see here, yes, we have an exchange plus 2 pawns. Let's see what's happening here. When you see this thing, black has weakened their position by moving the G pawn from G7 to G6, and this creates an enormous weakness of the dark colored squares. So if queen goes to F6, it's one move away from mate. What can black do? First of all, they cannot move the F pawn, so the queen cannot help here. What else can they do? They cannot check. They cannot place the queen, for example, on F8, or the knight on square that will control G7. So I think this would be a two-move mate. Yes. Here, what's going to happen? Bishop, rook, and knight collaborate wonderfully. Great. Because if the rook goes to d8, thanks to the bishop that protects the rook and the knight that controls c7, it is mate in one move. You see, we finished the first two horizontal lines, 24 out of 24. Will we be able to finish? Let's see. Here you see the king on h8 is blocked. The h7 pawn doesn't allow to escape. If rook checks from e8, king goes to g7. By itself it means nothing, but there's a follow-up because rook goes to g8, and I think it is made thanks, of course, to the king on h5 that controls two crucial squares, g6 and h6. Ah, okay, black is bishop to sacrifice to postpone the mate. What's happening here? Let's see. Materially, queen, both sides, two rooks, both sides, two bishops, 3, 4, 7. Material is the same, but black can win a rook on a1. But then white can push the knight where? They may push it to anyway, 3, d2, c3, and then queen is to go back to b2. Let's see. What is the worst that white can do? Take. Knight goes here, so queen cannot take this pawn. Queen goes back here to b2 where it started. Rook goes here, protected by the knight. Queen goes to a3, and queen should be able to escape. Anything else? Well, they can check from b6, and so what? You don't check for the heck of the check. Yes, that's it. We got it. What is happening here? Let's give a look. Black has an extra rook, so white better checkmate. But how? Or win the queen somehow. Do they have a check? Well, of course, they can check from g8, but they lost a knight. You're already down a rook. You don't want to lose more material. But what if the knight checks from g6? Where can the king go? It has only one square to go, e8, and queen goes to e7, and it's mate. And I don't think the black queen on b3 can interfere. One has to be very careful because it may suddenly reach f7 or g8 when you least expect. In fact, when the queen check here, the queen could take the queen. So that would not work either. But here, this is working. Let's hear what's going to happen. Here, we would have the keys of death. Not exactly. h7 with the rook on f8. It's mate. Otherwise, you didn't even be mate. But there is this stupid this knight on e4 that doesn't allow us. So what do we do? Check f6. If king, of course, goes to h8, queen goes to h7, it's mate. You don't even need a bishop on b2. But what if the knight is taken? The only other option for black. Then this is mate. Queen next to the king, and the rook on f8 is blocking the exit. Yes. Let's see what's happening here. Here, thanks to what is the material? We're down a bishop. Thanks to a pin, we're going to win the queen. Look how. Rook takes, check, queen takes back. Already lost the rook. White has to take back, otherwise they lose even more material. They lose the queen. And then rook goes to e1, and you see the pin. The queen cannot escape. It will be lost if you can take the rook here, but will be lost by the queen here on b4. There's a check here, but I don't think we have to worry. What can the rook do? What is the follow-up? Of course, we'll win the queen. Queen for a rook. Let's see here what's happening. A knight on f3 is pinned. We might lose a queen. But that's not going to be easy. Let's see here. This we'll need to think about it. And you may want to pause and think with me until I find an answer, if I find one. Materially, white has an extra exchange, black has an extra pawn, so white is very slightly ahead. It doesn't mean too much. If white is brave and sacrifices a queen, can they come up ahead? Let's see. If knight takes knight, black takes queen. And then knight goes to g6 check. Of course, it's lost, and then we take the queen. Do we win material? I think we win a queen and a knight. We lost a queen and a knight. But our rook is very, very dominant. That attacks the pawns. And also, since we're ahead by an exchange, let's simplify. I'm going for that. Now, of course, you cannot go to f7 because queen will take it, and we are down a queen. Yes. What's happening here? We can easily win the pawn on f5, and then I king is near the pawn. Look how far is the black king. So if a king can block the other king, the problem is we have to take this pawn, and also look at that. Usually rook pawns cannot win its draw unless you can keep the enemy king far away. I don't think we can go for this pawn and disregard this. First, we have to take this pawn. I think we can. Which is the best way to do it? I don't think there's only one way to do it, but you'll see this is very tricky. We need two moves to take this pawn, and in these two moves, the king goes here. King goes here. And then can we keep the king away? I think we can. Yes, we have to keep the king away. If we push the pawn, king goes here and then here, it is dangerous. So we have to put the king here. Yes, we got it. 31. Let's see how many can we do. We can attack the black queen, but how? With a rook on d2, but there is this pawn in b2 that stops. What can we do? What if the pawn goes to b3? We attack the queen. Where can the queen go? Cannot take the pawn because the knight and the queen will take. Cannot take the knight. Cannot go a4. Cannot go, but he can go a3. And so what? Is there a follow-up? Let's assume the queen goes to e3. It is safe for now, but what if the knight goes to c4? Where can the queen go? It can go to. I don't think it has anywhere to go. It's gonna go to c4. Queen cannot go to a4, a5. Can go here. Gonna go there. Cannot go down anywhere. I think that would be the answer. Okay, now that's much easier. We use a bishop to win the queen. Here, white is going the so-called Greek gift, but there is no knight for the follow-up. Materially, it's the same, but we can win the bishop. Does white have a nice follow-up? I don't see so. They can place the queen on h5. We go back to g8, and I don't think that white has any follow-up, and they are down by a bishop. Oh, they're going to win a bishop. We have to be careful. But what can we do? King goes to g8. There's no other legal move as far as I can see. Now, yes, here there's a problem. What can we attack? We can go to c2 and threaten the rook, and so what? We can push the pawn to g6, which has lots of squares to escape. Ah, yes. What if the knight goes on b3? We have a fork. We attack both the rook on a1 and the queen on c5, and we win at least the rook, or at least an exchange. We got it. What do we have here? Oh, that is a tricky one. Materially, how are we? Queen, two rooks, and two minor pieces, and 7, 6. White is ahead by one pawn, but look what black can do. Now we're going to the tricky ones. Forget about the easy back ranks or kisses of death. Knight goes to e2 check, and knight is having a fork, a triple attack. Attacks king on g1, rook on c1, and rook on g3. But what if the queen takes it? The queen can take, but then a queen takes the other knight. Wonderful. Here we are. Anything else? We could default, but anything else? Is a queen safe? I don't like the fact I was hoping. We can attack the knight on h4 with the queen on f4, but is it safe? Where can the knight go? It cannot, no matter where. It can go to f3, but then a pawn will go to h4, and the rook, either rook or the knight is lost. Oh no, now what do we do here? We can win the knight on e4, but then this knight is not pinned any longer. Yes, be careful, there is a matey threat here. Rook, you see that, first of all, you cannot take the queen because of the pin. Materially, we are ahead by a rook. So if we can avoid the mate, we are going to win the game. But you see, the pawn cannot take because of the pin. If we do nothing, rook goes here and it's a mate. And what can we do? How can we defend? I think there's only one way. Put the queen on h7. Of course, you cannot go to g6. Rook will take it. Queen goes to h7. Let's see. And we exchange queens and we're rook ahead. Wonderful. What do we do here? Is it a mate? First of all, we're not under check, so we are free to act the way we want. And how do we want? If the queen goes to e1, it should be mate. Two squares from the king. King has nowhere to go. The pawns on c2 and b2 are blocking the king to escape. A queen is under attack from the rook. A knight is under attack, so we cannot send, for example, a queen to e1. We'll save the queen, but lose the knight. But look at what's happening here, something wonderful. If the knight takes a pawn on h6, it's a check, so black needs to do something. Now the pawn is not protecting the queen any longer. The queen cannot take the knight because of the pin, and no matter what black does, we want the queen. Nope! We got one wrong. 35 correct and one wrong. We are allowed until 3 wrong. So we already have 35 correct, 1 wrong. Now, here, if bishop takes on f3, we are threatening mate. Can white stop it? If they check from b3, bishop goes back. Materially, we are white has 2 extra pawns. But we're going to win the knight and threaten for mate. Yes. Check. Now, we cannot move the king, otherwise we lose the bishop. Bishop has to go back to d5. And we take it. Yes, we got. What's happening here? Have a pawn near promotion, but not helping too much. The rook on e1 is stopping it. We wish that the rook could go to c1 or e1, then it's a way to win it, but not going to help. Materially, it's the same, but the pawn near promotion is extremely strong. The rook unfortunately can go to neither e6 or c6 to threaten to go c1 or e1. What can we do? What if the knight goes here? Yes. One move, the knight goes to e4. Next move, it goes to c3. Of course, the white rook cannot leave d1. And what can the bishop do? How can even if it protects it, we win an exchange. Now we have to be careful because our rook is under attack. We cannot just send our rook here. First thing I would do is exchange pawns. Next thing, okay, this we got it right. If we send our rook here, it's very tempting. Then the pawn cannot move, take the bishop, but the bishop can go here. So what I would do is I would send the rook in a dark colored square like d4. Wrong. Second rook. Let's see how are we going to do. One more wrong and it's over. Here, if only the pawn on g7 would not appear, we could take the knight on f6 and it's very dangerous. But what if rook takes a pawn? Yes, we sacrifice a rook. Queen takes. A queen takes on f6. King goes to g8 thanks to this pawn that blocks it. And then queen goes to g7 mate. Got it. 37, but too wrong. We are one away from disaster. Yeah, what's happening? We are one pawn down. No, we have the same pawn, six each of us. Two rooks and six pawns. If only we could promote the pawn. How can we do it? If rook goes to g2 to check, if king goes anywhere, we push the pawn. And let's see, I cannot see any other way to continue. Yes. Pawn goes to d2. We attack the rook on e1. Something else. Rook can go. Let's put the rook on e2. So if it goes here, king needs to go here. And we are even, you want the king to be as far away as possible. So even without counting details, you know that this will give you at least the same, if not a better position than just pushing the pawn. Yes. Now what do we do? If we push the pawn, king takes, and then we promote. Anything better? We can even threaten mate. Many things, and who knows what's the answer. If rook goes here, we threaten mate. And if rook goes here, we win the rook. But if here the pawn goes, what can black do to stop it? But if we go here, pawn can go here. So we check, and the king escapes. Check, and king goes here. Now I think the safest thing is pawn goes here. Rook goes here. We exchange rooks and we win the last rook. Yes, 38 correct. What are we doing here? If rook goes to h8 check, king can place the bishop. And so what? Clearly we cannot exchange rooks here because the pawn promotes. We cannot take the pawn because rook takes here. What can we do? Let's see. Rook goes here. Bishop goes here. Rook can go here. Promotes and mate. Let's see if this is the answer. Yes. We allow the promotion because now we have mate. Be careful, the mate is with this rook. Got it. 39 correct. Let's see. They become tougher and tougher. If a knight goes here, it threatens the queen. The queen cannot go in this diagonal to check because of this bishop. And then, no matter where the queen goes, knight goes here, and it should be mate, or at the very minimum, win. The queen, because if queen is someone that can take, then the bishop takes the queen. Wrong. So we got 39 correct. Once again, no record, but let's see how did we do. In fact, what we did wrong. Let's go to the one we need to learn from mistakes. Here, our attempt was the knight to take the pawn. And it says that it's wrong. Why? Let's try again. Could it be the other square, f6? Nope. Would it be we take the rook and we win the queen? Yep, that was it. We didn't see that the... Let's see once again. What we missed was that the black queen was also under attack, but and there's another detail. The queen was not pinned. So if we check like that, the queen can take back. I forgot that that was not a pin. That's what we got wrong in the first one. The second one. Here, we played this, correct? Correct. And here we place the rook here. Where should the rook go? Should it go here? I'm not sure. Nope. Nope. Yep. Nope. We are going to see the solution. Yes. Yes. Oh! Knight wins pawn. Yes. Still, we are not promoting, but we won at least a pawn. And let's see the last one. The last one, we tried the knight to go to a4. It was wrong. Why was it wrong? Anything else we can do? And the check is not here because of the pawn. Would it be the knight goes here? Nope. Oh, could it be the queen goes here, check? Yes, that was made. So that's it for now. We did 39 correct. Still cannot break the record of 50. And next video, we are going to have play bots, and it is Julia from the Netherlands. That's it for now. Thanks for watching, everybody. Uh, this is grecochess. I'm your host, Karelas, and series. Goodbye.